Hello, I am Colin Wright, and I am going to answer some of your questions. First question, what's the most stressful thing about your lifestyle? You know, there was a time when the most stressful thing in my life was trying to accumulate more money and status and prestige, and so I stressed out a whole lot about maintaining that, and that meant working harder than everybody else around me. And by working harder, I mean like putting in more hours and like draining myself of energy more so that I had more of all these status symbols so that I could prove how well I was doing, not just in a vacuum, but compared to everybody else. That ended up not being a very sustainable way to live. And it wasn't something that made me happy either, I realized once I finally took the time to step back and look at it from a big picture standpoint. Today, my lifestyle is substantially different than that, and I can kind of do within reason just about anything that I want to do when I want to do it. I have the freedom of time, which is something that I've worked very hard to liberate and make sure that I have access to. But these days, if I stress, and I deal with stress differently than I used to, I'll talk about that in a second, but if and when I stress, it's usually about trying to figure out which of the many different options I have to pursue. That's not super different than what most people deal with. Everybody, I think, has that choice that they have to make with everything that they do. But it's different in a way because I have all of this time and I've got all of these different options of things that I really passionately want to throw myself into. But I can only do one thing at a time. Or rather, I can only do one thing at a time and expect to fully commit myself to it and do it well and not kill myself by like draining all of my energy for a million different projects. And so that has been a really difficult thing for me these last 7 years, where now I've got all of this time and I have all of these options, but which do I do and in what order, and how much of my lifestyle do I commit to these different decisions? Recently, I made a huge transition. I'm in a new studio space now here because I've rented an apartment in Wichita, Kansas, because there was a series of projects, including this one, that I wanted to be able to commit more time to, and that meant committing to some infrastructure. So that meant getting an apartment here in a place that's quiet and has internet access, and a place where I can get deliveries and regular things like that, certain infrastructural things that I don't always have. And I had to get some equipment that I couldn't carry easily in my carry-on bag. And so I stressed out about this because it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. This and other things that I'm doing right now, like learning to cook, things that at any given point over the last 7 years I could have done, but it would have interrupted myriad other things that I wanted to commit my time to. And so committing to this and buying some furniture and setting up the infrastructure and signing a contract, things like that, huge stressors for me. But the way that I deal with stress now is a lot healthier, I think. I recognize that it's not forever. A year contract on an apartment is not forever. It doesn't prevent me from traveling and such in the meantime, so it doesn't fully take me away from all these other things that I want to do. It just makes me focus on some things above and beyond other things. And I also make sure to not spread myself so thin that I'm putting just 10% effort into everything. I like to commit 80, 90% to one thing at a time. And then in between those other things, ensure that I have downtime. And so I have plenty of time to read and play guitar and to just space out on projects that don't matter and that are not going to earn me any money, things that are not long-term plans, they're just fun things that I want to do. And so I guess the short answer is that it's very different things that are stressful, depending on which element of my lifestyle I'm involved with at the moment, but that I do my best to build little steam valves into everything that I do so that I don't go totally crazy and just demolish my health and happiness and well-being the way that I did back in my past life when I was living in LA and simply trying to aim for prestige and status and reputation above personal happiness and satisfaction. And the second question today, do you keep up with politics in the US and in the places that you live outside the US? And how do you keep up with these things? Typically, no. Typically, my modus operandi for keeping up with politics is to keep up with the broad strokes and just the most vital, important stuff rather than the day-to-day gossip, which is essentially what most of it is. This election cycle has been a little bit different, partly because I've been in the US for a good deal of it, and partly because it's been such a crazy shit show. It's been remarkable on a lot of different levels, not just for the sideshow act that it's become, and not just because it's become a soap opera, but because it represents a very dramatic shift in the way that we view politics, the way that we interact with politics. This is the first election that has involved a lot of these new technologies that we've come to take for granted. Certain elements of social media, certain elements of interaction, a certain level of saturation for smartphones and high-speed internet. So it's dramatically changed the way that we interact and share our opinions and such. So a lot about this political season has been very interesting to me. But on top of that, I was in London during the Brexit, for example, and when that type of thing is occurring around you, and it is a sudden shift, and it is something that's vitally important, you kind of want to know something about it. And so I did, for the week leading up to the Brexit, I did a great deal of research and read a whole lot of books and longer form documents and even more gossipy articles about it so that I could understand what was going on. And so my approach to politics tends to be that. I want to be informed enough to make decisions about anything that I'm going to be involved with or talking about. And because everybody's talking about politics right now, it has become the most entertaining thing on television, I wanted to make sure that I was educated. And I wanted to make sure that I was educated enough to actually care about voting as well. And voting is something that I haven't always done, but particularly as statistics have become more important in the political scene, where we are choosing candidates and we are choosing platforms based on the people who come out to vote, whether or not your vote actually logistically, statistically matters. Simply going out to vote means that you are showing that your age demographic, your income level, your education level, all of these things, your group of people are voting. And so in that way, you numerically actually do matter. And so for me, it was really important that I get out and vote and be educated then about who I actually agree with more than the other people, because I don't agree with any of them 100%, but who I should actually cast my vote for, because this is something that does statistically matter more and more and more. And so my research, my self-education, my involvement with it revolves around that, being an educated voter, which is, essentially what democracy is predicated on anyway. It's not how it typically works, but we should aspire to be educated. The way that I get this information, I do a lot of link clicking. I will go and read the Wikipedia entry for a given person or platform or historical event, and then I'll click through all the different links on there so that I incrementally know more and more and more about a given topic and the background therein. And then I listen to podcasts so that I can get opinions of people who are better educated about this than I am, and so that then I can hear the play-by-play. And I try to get a good mix of people who believe very different things, people who are a little bit on different sides of the political spectrum, people who are in the middle. I try to hear a well-informed collection, an aggregate of a well-rounded selection of different people. And then as a result, I can kind of choose who I agree more with and who I disagree with. But then I'm also continuously getting information that I disagree with that is well informed. And I think that's just as important as getting information that agrees with your existing platform, preaching to the choir type of stuff, because that reinforces your existing beliefs. I would rather have my beliefs challenged as often as possible, because that helps me feel better about the beliefs that I have, because I have exposed them to the elements and they have survived. But it also allows me to evolve my ideas over time. And that is something that's very important. If you do believe in something, it should be able to weather criticism. And if it can't, then maybe you should question why you believe in these things. So when you're trying to educate yourself about anything, be it philosophy or belief systems or politics, which is very often, as much as anything else, a belief system, ensure that you are choosing something that can take a hit. And if it can't, allow yourself to be exposed to a lot of different types of information and leave yourself open to the idea that your mind can be changed. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to ask a question for me to answer in a future video, you can leave it in the comment section below, or you can go to the Consider This Facebook page. You can find out more about me and my work at colin.io. My blog is at exilelifestyle.com. My podcast is called Let's Know Things, which, if you enjoy this, chances are you will enjoy that as well. If you enjoyed this episode or any other episode, a like or a share would be very much welcome. And if you want to help support this show, you can go to colin.io/contribution to find out the myriad different ways that you can do that.